Hello everyone and welcome to LukeLore, a quick deep dive into a folklore topic where I share some of the stories from around the world that have piqued my interest. I have a few location-based episodes coming down the pipeline that I want some more time to research. I'm still a bit wobbly recommencing this show for the year, and I don't want to put too little work into the topic when I know there's more to unpack there. So I started thinking about what do I know that's obvious to me that I take for granted as known quantities that I haven't actually talked about on the show yet. The kind of thing I'll chat about casually, big para-weird community keynotes that will come up in conversation elsewhere that I haven't committed to script as yet. Some free-floating common lore that I can have fun discussing. I think I've got it. 5 things that are well embedded in the pop culture zeitgeist I can share some fun thoughts about, codifying them into the LukeLore body of work. Going into this, I fully expect everyone to have at least heard of these urban legends, but I reckon I can bring some fun facts to the cultural roundtable on these ones. They're the kind of stories you shrug off, assuming you must know about them because they're so obvious, but beneath the surface level, there's some wonderfully strange stuff going on. Veterans of the para-weird looking to reminisce and the uninitiated wanting to catch up alike? Let's dive on into these heavy hitters of urban legend. Shadow people. Okay, shadow people. It is highly likely these are a common enough phenomenon that everyone will have heard of them, but going over the basics may help define them. To oversimplify to the point of basically being useless, they're a kind of ghost. Looking at older stories across the ages, and they really do seem to have always been with us, they appear to be assortedly referred to as shades. In current online English-speaking circles, they are simply referred to as shadow people, and have been for a while. These things are person-shaped patches of darkness, sometimes seen as a shadow with nothing casting it, sometimes a freestanding silhouette wandering about the place like a hole in the world. They're extremely common to see during sleep paralysis. Whether you take that as comforting that they must surely be nothing more than a nightmare, or worrying that they might be attracted to, maybe even the cause of, people being frozen in place, that's down to your interpretation. There is some controversy in the wider community about what they may be, what they may want, if they are some sort of conscious entity, whether they're benign observers or angry sentient darkness. Are they ghosts? Are they aliens? Are they the subconscious projections of common anxieties? In my years of researching paranormal encounters for the Ghost Story Guys podcast, I can say there is one very common behaviour shared here. Shadow people are dicks. Especially one particular one of them seen around the world. Don't worry, we'll get to him. They aren't exclusive to sleep paralysis. These shades can and will pop up anywhere. They're not necessarily contained to darkness and will have encounters that are fully lit or even in the daytime, although they're particularly good at blending in at night. They do tend to be a darker patch of night to help them stand out after dark, especially if your eyes have adjusted to the low light and you just see the shape of a person decide to go for a wander on its own. Most will just be a generic person shape without details, except of course for that one outstanding individual shade. The Hat Man. You'll know him if you see him, even mid-panic at a shade popping up. The wide-brimmed hat that's a part of his silhouette is easy to spot, and while shadow people encounters can run a whole gamut of neutral to even benign encounters, as well as them mostly being arseholes, the Hat Man is without fail a menace, generally being boneless unnerving even if he doesn't actually do anything, and frequently being actively threatening to boot. The Hat Man is not a fun encounter. To be anywhere near him is to feel a stare of pure malice being driven into you, a feeling that generally doesn't lead to good times. He may loom over you in a sleep paralysis episode where, odds are, he will steal your breath. You may encounter him stood out and about somewhere just watching. The creep may even play a twisted game of peekaboo with you when you're alone. Everything will seem to be normal and this living shadow will just pop its head around the corner to glare at you, then vanish out of sight. You won't know what just happened and, even worse, you now won't know where the Hat Man is. Is he gone? Is he waiting for you to be foolish enough to come over and check? Is he moving closer while he's out of sight? Although he has led to a t-shirt design I quite badly want that has a picture of the Hat Man with, "I can't take Benadryl, I owe the Hat Man money and I don't want to see him." So that's one good thing about the git at least. There's no fixed rules about a shadow person encounter beyond hoping you don't have one. Given how perfectly they fit old Tales of Shades, they seem to have been with us for as long as there has been an us to haunt. They're quite the strong archetype blending together fear of the unknown, fear of the dark, and, if taken as a type of ghost, fear of death on top. For some consolation, they don't actually seem to hurt people. As unpleasant as they can be, they're not out to eat brains or drink blood. They can, unfortunately, do the sleep paralysis demon thing of putting pressure on you and squeezing the air out of your lungs in an associated episode, which isn't going to be fun. Whether you take them as extra-dimensional travellers or the dead out for a stroll, there doesn't seem to be physical interaction, even if it's a full-blown pants-wetting date with the Hat Man. Not that I recommend trying to hug them either. In case of shadow person, just avoid it until it goes away. One important reminder: if you do have sleep paralysis, there is an important hack to break it. Move any part of your body at all. Sleep paralysis happens when you wake up but your body is still locked into a dream state, and as such your brain isn't letting you move to keep you safe. A perfectly fine physiological tool so you don't fight the wall or try to eat your pillow while your unconscious imagination is going wild, up until it goes wrong, anyway. If you can wiggle a single finger or toe, if you can press your tongue to the top of your mouth, you can break the paralysis. Focus, concentrate on that one tiniest motion, then straight up smack the looming Hat Man in the balls. It's a service to the rest of the world. Black-Eyed Children. Black-Eyed Children are a very simple but particularly unnerving story. By appearance, they do what they say on the tin. The black eyes are the giveaway that they aren't what they seem, acting creepy and weird, not really distinguishing them from regular children all that much, so the visual cue is welcome. Encounters can be in slightly different locations, but will always play out the same way. The hapless target will be at home, or at work, or in a vehicle, and the children will call for help. They will knock until someone notices them, then ask to be let in, begging for help if you engage with them. At first, helping them will seem the obvious thing to do. It's children ranging from the age of 6 to 16 who need an adult. There will even be an unnatural component to the encounter, a compulsion, a tug at the mind, a near-hypnotic effect that will leave someone reaching for the door, acting without thinking, empathy and instincts hijacked by the apparent children. Apparent children. Stories of these encounters take a turn when the person who reports it say they notice there's something not quite right. They see the dead, black, inhuman eyes. Expressions will be off in some indefinable yet disgusting way. The supposed children will look wrong. When you pay attention and take the details in, with the mesmeric pull broken, your survival instincts will kick back in, and the not children will feel wrong on a deep animal level. They are the predator. You are the prey. The primordial part of your brain will be screaming at you to run. Your body will flush with adrenaline, and you will realize the mere proximity of these alien things is making you feel sick. The creatures will then begin to panic, not in a relatable human way. They will notice you have broken their hold over you and become desperate to enter. They will insist you have to let them in, becoming angry you are set to escape. The pretense of needing your help will vanish along with any sense these are real children. Pleading will turn to threats. If you ignore them, they will eventually go away, vanishing to wherever they came from or else moving on to find a new victim. It's very rare a black-eyed children encounter is reported back from someone who let them in, which I take as a very worrying sign. We don't know what exactly inviting the creepy little things in means for the victim. We only know that for the most part we don't hear from anyone unfortunate enough to fall for the trap. I have seen at least one story from letting black-eyed kids in, and while the events which unfolded weren't too bad, it certainly wasn't good. An elderly couple was sitting out a snowstorm at home when they heard 3 loud knocks from their back door. Confused, they answered to see 2 children, a boy and a girl, badly underdressed for a blizzard, asking for help. It seemed obvious to the old couple you don't leave kids out to die of exposure in dangerous weather, so they let them in. It was only after it was too late they realised something was up. The clothes were weirdly out of place, possibly like they were from the wrong time, but maybe just not quite right, as if they were made by someone who has heard about children's clothes but not actually seen them before. Their exceptionally pale complexion could at first have been dismissed as being cold, but it never warmed up once they got inside. The supposed children remained as white as the snow they had appeared in. Then, of course, was the matter of their eyes. Totally black voids. After coming in, the freaky little cuckoos reassure the old couple that their parents will be picking them up soon. One asks if they can use the restroom, and the old couple just kind of go along with it, waiting to see what happens. Once the wandering child thing returns, they both announce their parents are here now, and walk out the front of the house, leaving the door wide open. The elderly couple think they can see two overly tall, strangely proportioned figures at the end of their driveway that vanish in the downpour of snow once the kids reach them. Afterwards, 3 of the 4 pet cats of the household have vanished, and the old man develops a persistent nosebleed that plagues him for the rest of his life. I hate mimics so damn much. As with most mimics, we don't know what they want. Are they predatory? Are they scouting people and locations out? Is it an obscure inhuman prank? We just know that black-eyed children are freaky even by usual mimic standards. It's a really modern urban legend that only seems to have got into mainstream circulation in the 90s when a reporter called Brian Bethel wrote up 2 encounters for a mailing list sharing ghost stories. A story from Portland, Oregon, and his own personal encounter in Abilene, Texas. It may well be that this sort of story has existed longer in word of mouth, but Bethel's personal story is supposed to be from the 80s, and there are now a dozen or so regularly occurring incidents circulating online. Britain did its part to boost the signal of the tales when a tabloid rag called the Daily Star ran 3 consecutive front-page specials back in 2014. There's even been at least 1 horror movie about the phenomenon, giving wider exposure outside of internet creepypasta posts. Speculation goes that there may be aliens, ghosts, vampires of some description with the insistence they must be invited in, or that they are demons tricking their way into the homes of the innocent and caring with their childlike disguise lowering people's guard. I wouldn't pass them being some sort of AOC tricksters, something I would want to tangle with least of anything of this list of suspects. Best to stay wary if mysterious ankle-biters appear at the door with an evil aura that radiates terror. If nothing else, think of your poor pets, and after checking their eyes to make sure you're about to make a tragic mistake, proceed to most enthusiastically do not let them in. Before our next section, quick ad break. The Men in Black. Most people will know the name only from the movies, and I will come back around to that point, but there's an older, much more sinister version of this, and I don't just mean the comics the movies were based on, although I have heard they're pretty good. No badges, no ID, just ill intent. They harass people who've had paranormal encounters that may be extraterrestrial in nature. There's some speculation they themselves are directly linked to these encounters, and may not even be human, but the overall consensus seems to be they're government agents. Officially unofficial, no public oversight, funded in untraceable ways and with unchecked power. Turbo-feds who clean up any evidence that may be inconvenient to the narrative the public are allowed to have surrounding alien visitations. Other law enforcement agencies seem to be under their direct command if they should pop up. The memory wiping seems to be a part of some original stories, but they also seem willing to go in for the lower tech yet effective option of assassination if it's convenient. They're like an aftershock to a weird encounter. The weirdness has to come first, then the Men in Black will make their presence known. There's something ick about them, and it doesn't need them to be aliens themselves for this. Despite regular evidence to the contrary, the government is supposed to work for the people and law enforcement agencies are there to help. Yes, I know, depending on where you live and what your background is, that statement may be the biggest laugh of the episode, but that's the ideal theory. This is the full-throttle antithesis. You see a light in the sky, or a little green man moons you from the tree line. Maybe a cow explodes. You are alarmed. You call for help. You get told someone will be right with you, and then some Matrix agent-looking bullies are on the doorstep yelling at you for daring to exist around the paranormal. Try to get help because now you really feel like you're in danger, or not only will law enforcement not help you, they will instead help the nameless suits here to harass you. You're now actively being threatened to keep quiet about something that happened to you. With the added bonus, you aren't being protected from the weird thing. It instead seems to be protected from you. A rewatch of The X-Files may fill you in more on the down-the-rabbit-hole idea of what's going on with governments and aliens, or else look at the Wikipedia series synopsis. Although down that path lies overwhelming paranoia. Within the field of folklore is the idea how certain core stories and ideas, things that just resonate with people, evolve with the times. So at one point in time, an encounter with otherworldly beings would be seen through the lens of the Aoshi and Fae. Then you skip forwards in time to a cultural shift into strict Christianity, and the same encounter would be seen through a lens of a heavenly host of angels. Then you skip ahead to the information age and science fiction. These encounters become aliens from beyond the stars. The folklorist James R. Lewis drew a line between the MIB showing up to terrorize people and encounters with Lucifer, when the devil would approach the innocent, or at least the unwary, to bother them. Overbearing government-backed thugs with a veneer of respectability tailored over them do feel like a good fit for the devil causing trouble with mortals, so I can see it. Back to the topic of the movies. The whole Men in Black thing is very conspiratorial, and that extends further into the wacky fun of the movies which spun off from the concept. There's a further idea the whole franchise is a PSYOP, psychological warfare operation, to discredit anyone visited by the real-life sinister counterparts. You see something you shouldn't have, and unnerving men in uniformed suits appear to torment you over it. You're followed. They keep stopping you when you don't expect it. They barge into your home to intimidate you where you live. Calling the police does less than nothing. No one can tell you who they really are, but also they're allowed to do whatever they want to you. No one will help you. You're alone. You're desperate. You try to turn to help elsewhere because no one in law enforcement or government will do anything. And everyone makes fun of you, because they think you think Will Smith is your paralysis demon turning up at 3 AM to rap at you when all the cool kids get the Hat Man. A genius 4D chess maneuver to hide above the law goons in plain sight if true. Otherwise, still an interesting conspiracy theory about pop culture astroturfing. But yeah, Men in Black. Get ready for ridicule if you do have an encounter with them, but still do reach out if you're being harassed by anyone who fits the bill. They want to hide in plain sight, and scrutiny will hopefully chase them away back to whatever off-the-books bunker they skulk about in, monitoring social media for close encounters to silence. Alligators in the sewer. This one is a bit more whimsical leaning. Feels more on the level of don't eat apple seeds or a tree will grow in your stomach. But it involves the folly of hubris, so has great fairy tale factor. Now, this isn't about where you may expect to find an alligator. Bad weather and poorly designed sewers in Florida can indeed wash giant reptiles to where they shouldn't be, where they'll then be rather cranky. Any poor soul doing maintenance work around swamps in Florida should be getting danger pay. Even retrieving golf balls can be a matter of life and death down there. I swear the bonkers Florida man trend is just a sensible adaptation to living in a state that can give Australia's wildlife a run for its money as nature and hard mode. This urban legend is when a man-eating survivor of the dinosaur ages turns up somewhere unexpected, which is a bonus worry if the toothy sentient bear trap is already an ambush predator. This is a tale that's been around for at least 100 years, and is kind of still Florida's fault when it comes to the United States. Looking just at the USA for now, let's focus on the archetypal telling from over that way. Exotic pets getting out into the wild and causing havoc isn't impossible. It is, in fact, a depressing topic of ecological disaster to look into. Let's stick with the fun urban legend ones, though. So, the best-known tales go, parents go somewhere like Florida or Illinois, let's not let them off the hook, where you can buy a tiny alligator in a tank as a cute souvenir. They're spun a tale of micro-gators, or else don't question the gift too closely, in an exemplary example of buyer beware, leading to this cute little exotic pet being taken back home over state lines. The cute small animal stays neither of these things, getting bigger and bitier over time. The government may also step in with a "what the hell are you idiots doing?" emergency banning of carnivorous living fossils being kept in tiny apartments. This leads to poor Snappy getting a trip down the toilet, into the sewers, where the tale takes its next twist. The newly freed Snappy finds himself in an all-you-can-eat buffet of giant rats and human waste, all in a network of waterways spanning the whole city. Between the chemicals down there and the living away from sunlight, this will usually lead to the stories of city sewer gators becoming albino, so the unlucky sewer maintenance worker who foolishly crosses paths with the now giant-sized carnivore while looking delicious sees this terrifying, red-eyed ghost powering down the dark tunnels towards them. Foolish impulses of the past coming back to haunt everyone in a worryingly literal way. Experts do say the sewers of big cities are too toxic and too cold for any flush alligator to survive for long in, let alone thrive, especially the big cities like New York or Paris, which seem to attract the majority of these tall tales. But not for long is not the same as not at all, and any sighting, even just that of a corpse, will cause rapid alarm that grows in the retelling. This type of urban legend manages to thrive from the fun factor alone. Okay, yes, there's an element of good scare to it, but that's absolutely a part of the appeal. Dumb parents who bought exotic pets for their kids, who then threw them away, have now led to a terror stalking us beneath the streets. These stories do have two advantages. First, that the world is strange enough that it'll probably happen at least once, fueling paranoia about how possible it may be, statistics or inconvenient facts be damned. Secondly, that it's just stupid enough it feels like it should be true even without a rogue true example to get amplified in the retelling. It also doesn't help that there are several solid recorded encounters out there. According to the 1959 book The World Beneath the City by Robert Daly, there were substantiated reports of an albino crocodile spotted by the New York City maintenance workers in 1935. The initial reports were dismissed, but they were worrying enough to lead to a hunt for confirmation, and while the fabled behemoth potential man-eater never turned up again, there were further sightings of exotic reptiles up to 2 feet long. This developed into an extermination campaign to purge the sewers of displaced alligators. Which feels harsh, but you also don't want to deal with a spate of poop-covered bites off rogue former pets, out for revenge on the surface world. There's additional speculation that the pets did not have to survive the flush, as any chuck-down storm drains would be much more likely to survive, and that may be where they came from on the back of poorly chosen fad in the early 20th century. Paris gets to be Europe's version of the tale, because they only went and bloody caught their sewer gator, well, crocodile for France. Somehow a Nile crocodile was found in the sewers near the Pont Neuf Bridge on the 7th of March in 1984. Firefighters managed to capture her, and she was properly named Eleanor when taken in by the Vans Aquarium. Eleanor the crocodile had quite a good run, only dying in May of 2022. When I first began chasing down the facts of this tale, I expected fiction to be driving it, but if anything, this is a thoroughly substantiated case of exotic pets getting out into the wild. That they can, and have, turned up where they're least expected is pretty impressive, and there are plentiful stories across the southern United States of the animals being fully expected to be sheltering in man-made waterways. This all does feed into supporting one of my favourite British tales, those of big cats being found in wilder areas, almost certainly exotic pets making a bid for freedom, possibly being zoo escapees. There has been recent exciting news on that front. For the first time, DNA evidence has proven there are big cats roaming the British countryside. Although while that's exciting, potentially also bad news for pets. Maybe pay attention to sensationalised sightings of exotic animals popping up in tabloid newspapers, and keep a close eye on bite-sized pets until there's an official investigation done. Phantom Hitchhiker. Time for one more tale of modern-day folklore, because it's a story I love and is easily one of the most commonly shared ghost stories. Someone will know someone who swears they know someone this definitely happened to. There are plenty of variations, but one that should sound familiar goes like this. Someone is driving home alone at night in an atrocious downpour. Visibility will be terrible in the day, but in the dark, travelling like this is dangerous. Struggling to watch the road, they noticed a figure desperately trying to wave them down. A young woman with no coat, no umbrella, looking half drowned in the stormy weather. Pity outweighing caution at letting a stranger into their vehicle, the driver stops and they're thanked profusely by their new passenger. They notice how the poor girl is shivering uncontrollably, so hand back a jacket, a hoodie, a sweater or such like for them to gratefully wrap up in. Ask where they live, the hitchhiker will tell them some point just up ahead. At some point, while trying to make small talk, the driver will realise they can't see anyone in the rear-view mirror. Looking at the back seat will show they are alone in the car. Any clothing they pass back for the hitchhiker to warm up with now rests on the seat, soaking wet. Some of my favourite variations include a chain of events leading to recovering the lone jacket from the grave of the phantom hitchhiker, but the simplest story is most likely to be encountered. The directions to where they live may also be to where they are buried for an extra dramatic vanishing trick. The sheer ubiquity of the story is astounding. We're not in weird it happened twice territory. This urban legend can pop up anywhere and everywhere around the world with alarming regularity. Not just retellings of a classic, but also ongoing spikes in newer variations. New Orleans has a compelling case to make for being the single most haunted city in the United States, and they have quite the stake in phantom hitchhikers. Rumours online began to circulate that there are areas of the city entire taxi companies refuse to service in the late hours into early morning because of ghosts catching a cab, then vanishing without paying their fare. Something common enough to be frustrating cabbies who are getting their time wasted. This sadly seems to be an exaggeration, and there are no company-led bans over ghosts being common enough they're screwing up expected hourly revenue. It does seem the city is more than haunted enough for multiple stories to have built up over phantom fee dodgers, and it's pretty funny that the main takeaway from all mortals involved is that it's annoying how it interferes with getting paid. As a quick side note, I did find there appears to also be a notorious ghost taxi in the French Quarter for the opposite problem. New Orleans may be cruising for a dedicated LukeLore episode in the near future. A similar situation appears to have unfolded in Japan in the wake of the 2011 tsunami. Once it was possible to return to the area and a sense of normalcy resumed along with rebuilding efforts, strange reports started appearing online from populated areas in the northeast heaviest hit by the disaster. Especially Ishinomaki, the city heaviest hit by the initial impact and flooding that followed, resulting in over 3,500 lives lost and over 400 people remained unaccounted for years afterwards. Taxi drivers will report a variety of stories about ghost furs who would vanish at some point in the journey. Most of these stories begin with the taxi driver not even realizing they did not have a living passenger, and in some, the passenger themselves seem unaware of that fact. One tale involved picking up a child who was dressed wrong for the season. They would arrive at a derelict home where the little girl would say a polite thank you and vanish after exiting the taxi. Another from closer to the time of the disaster had someone trying to reach an inaccessible area by car. Upon being completely blocked from getting home, the passenger asked in a meek, sad voice, "Oh, am I dead?" before disappearing. The most common stories involved minimal interaction. The driver would accept the job, head towards the address, then the passenger would vanish without a trace halfway there. The taxi would then typically continue to the address given where possible, before opening the car door for the ghost to leave, a cultural sign of respect for the lost souls. All the trips to the full destination, even without pay or a visible ghost, seems to have done the job though, and while alarmingly common in the wake of the tsunami, the phantom furs appear to have not lingered, with sightings not seeming to continue into today. At the very least, their reports are much less common than they initially began. I did spot some pretty funny discourse while double-checking the stories of these two cities that the Japanese respectful treatment of the ghost passengers seems to have laid them to rest, while the New Orleans cabbies yelling at the ghosts about failing to pay up seems to have left permanent resentful spirits continuing to annoy taxi companies on a semi-regular basis. It feels good to cover these, getting them into the LukeLore canon after they've been conspicuously absent for what is now a fair few years. Place your bets now for who/what is going to be most annoyed at me over this episode and will be giving me a visit. Black-Eyed Kids, the Hat Man, or the Men in Black. There's at least one more big tale to delve into for this concept. Massive parts of the modern folklore field I haven't covered yet, but the one I'm thinking of is going to need its own show someday. I accidentally blundered into a big research project while looking for a topic that didn't need a big research project. Pretty standard operating procedure for me, really. More to come on this at some point in the future. LukeLore is a Ghost Story Guys production. If you do want to contact me, there's the show's dedicated email, lukeloregsg@gmail.com, and the general show email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. Both myself and the main show are really easy to find on Facebook and Twitter if you want to make day-to-day contact, as well as a very active Instagram account a lot of the community gets involved with. If you want to support the show directly, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. We do have LukeLore merchandise available at the Ghost Story Guys online store. Feel very free to show off any you get online. We have an ongoing push to promote LukeLore more, and the dedicated Facebook group for the show is a pretty active success if you want to come join us over there. As ever though, the absolute best thing anyone can do to support the show is to give it a listen. Share this around if you think you may know someone who may be interested. Leave a review if you get the chance to help signal boost me. And most of all, I simply hope you enjoy what I'm doing here. Goodbye for now.